Hello there, programmers, and welcome to another episode of Dumb as Code. Today what we're going to do is we're going to start talking about object-oriented programming within the Python language. Now, you'll commonly hear the term object-oriented programming, and it might be a little bit confusing if you're just learning about the basics of programming, but hopefully today's lesson will clarify what object-oriented programming is, and then what the other words that are commonly used around it are, such as instances, methods, classes, and member variables. So what all of that means, why we use them, and how we actually can define them. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to set up a new Python project. Hopefully you've run through enough Python tutorials at this point to know how to set up a basic project, but if not, I have PyCharm installed here. There's a great tutorial series in my channel already about PyCharm and the benefits of using it. So if you want to go ahead and learn this for the first time, pause now, go download PyCharm. When you come back, you're going to create a brand new project, and you're going to call it whatever you want. I'm calling this one objects, just so that because that's what it's going to be about. And then once you get started, you can right-click, create a new Python file, and call it main.py. And then we're just going to add these two lines here. There's another tutorial in my channel about what dunder name actually does. But to give you just a really quick rundown, this block of code here is going to be executed if this file is the one that is launched inside of Python. So if you click run, you'll see that we print out running. That's all we're doing here. Okay? So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. So what is a class versus an object versus an instance? Okay, so to understand these concepts, it's best if we start with an example. So let's go ahead and create a class. What we're going to do is I'm going to use pets as an example just because it will allow us to show some of the more advanced concepts as we move through this tutorial. But here we have a class, and we're going to say we're going to create a pet. Now, there is a keyword in Python called pass. What this allows us to do is to create just a shell of a class called pet and do nothing when it's instantiated. Okay, so we have created a class. The class is pet, and what this is a blueprint of what we want pets to look like. Okay, so whenever we create and use this this class moving forward, anything that's defined inside of it will be included in the actual object that's created later on down the line. So the object is the physical representation of the memory associated with this class. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So let's go ahead and show this. What we're going to do here is we're going to say my pet equals pet, okay? And then we can print out my pet so that you can see what this is. So if we run this, you'll see what we have here is a representation inside of main, which is the file that the name of the module we're running. We're running the main module. At .pet is an object at this memory pointer location. So, as I said, the object here that we're creating, my pet, is the memory representing this object, or this class. And class is a blueprint, okay? Now, let's do something a little fun here. Let's go ahead and show, I can take now this instance, and I can create another one. And let's say your pet equals pet, okay? And then down here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say my pet.name equals, let's do Chloe. That's my dog's name. Okay. And then let's say your pet.name equals something, let's say Skittles. All right. So your pet is Skittles, my pet is Chloe. You have a weird sense of humor for naming your animals, but good for you. Okay? Now what we can do is I can print myPet.name and yourPet.name. Okay? What we have done here is on the instance of this object, we have attached a new variable. Okay? So this is an instance variable, and we have attached it to the object in memory. So now if I run this, you will now see it is actually printing out the values that I'm assigning here. So we can manually put new fields onto an existing instance of an object. But this is crazy. Why can't I just, when I create the pet, add the name in at the time that I create the object? Instead of having to manually add a name field into every object I create, can I just say, let's have a name be here? I'm glad you asked, because yes, we can. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to the class definition above, and we're going to use one of the dunder functions. So dunder, in case you don't know, means double under, and they're built-in functions inside of the language that allow you to perform certain actions. And one of those actions is initializing your class. So dunder init. And what this does is it creates a double underscore init double underscore, and then we're passing in self. Now I'll explain what self is in just a second, because a lot of people get confused on what self is actually doing here. But what we can do is we can also pass in a name, okay? And then what we do is we say self.name equals the name that we pass in. So let's actually change this so that we make this super clear what's happening. We're going to call this new name. Okay? So this is a new name that we're passing into the initialization. And then we're saving this on self.name. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually take here the Chloe. I'm going to cut this and paste it into the pet constructor. That's what this is called, a constructor. I'm going to pass it in here. And so my pet will be created with pet and then pass in the name of Chloe. We're going to do the same thing with Skittles on your pet. And then we're going to delete these two lines. Okay? So now what we're left with is two objects being instantiated. So these are two instances of pet. Both of them are passing in a name. And then we're going to print and see what is inside of this name field. Okay? So if we run this, you'll see everything looks exactly the same. The difference is now we're not manually creating this name field. It's being created here. So what's happening? Why does this work? Okay, you see this self that's being passed in here? This is the instance reference. That's what this is called. So when I create an instance, self gets automatically passed in. What I do is I call it from an instance. I say myPet.name, right? And so myPet is the instance name, okay? .name. And what I'm saying is grab this reference here and access it to grab name. So this self here is attached here, and each instance references everything inside of itself with self. You can actually call this anything you want to. If you pass in myself, for instance, I can say myself here. And if I run this, it will still work. The name itself is not important. What's important is that the first argument inside of the initialization is a reference to itself. Okay? Now, we use self because that's what everyone in the Python world uses. You don't have to, but I suggest you do. Okay? Just so that if someone else reads your code, they'll know exactly what's going on. Okay? So, again, you run this, you see that everything here is working. Okay. Hopefully you're following along. Now, the next thing we can do is we can create a method on our class. Okay? Methods are special functions. So we already know functions are a way to interact and bundle up code as an executable bundle. A method is just a function that operates on the instance of a class. That's all the name method actually means, okay? So if I want to, for instance, I decide later on I want to change the name of, or let's say print age. So let's change this up a little bit. Let's say we're going to pass in an age, okay? And I'm going to say self.age equals age. So now I'm creating an age, and then I'm going to say def print print age, and then I'm going to pass in self, okay? Now you'll notice that when I open the parentheses here, PyCharm automatically names this to self. That's because that's the standard way of naming this, as I said. So PyCharm will do a lot of this for you automatically, which is nice, okay? Now down here we're going to change these up a little bit. I'm going to pass in the age of my pet is 8 and your pet is 22. You have a very old pet, okay? A very old pet named Skittles. Okay. So now what I can do is I can say print, and then I'm going to pass in an F string, okay? And I am going to say self.name is now self.age years old. Okay? So what this will allow me to do is now I can come down here and call my pet dot print age and your pet dot print age. Okay? So I'm creating this with the self reference, and then I'm using F strings, which are a Python 3.6 way of doing formatted strings in line. So we're interpolating the value in with the string value itself. So when we run this, we can now see Chloe is now 8 years old and Skittles is now 22 years old. Okay? So hopefully this helps you grasp what a class is versus an instance versus an object. Okay, you can see the objects are the physical memory locations that's represented by this crazy number here. This is actually a location, a pointer to a memory location, versus instances, which are when you actually instantiate your class. And then the class is the blueprint of all the things that represent that object when you're manipulating it and working with it. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll look at the next piece, which is if I want to take, this is a base class, and I can actually extend this using a special syntax here in Python to create a new kind of class that will represent my pet even better. So my pet is a dog, and a dog is a kind of pet. So that's what this syntax is. Class dog, parentheses pet. Now what I can do is I can say def init, and then I will pass in let's pass in name and age still. And then what I can do is I can say super dot init, and I pass in the name and the age. So what this is doing is this is saying our superclass, which is a pet, we're going to create an instance of the superclass and initialize it with the name and age that gets passed into the dog. And then what I can do is I can say I can add additional functionality on here, and I can say self.type equals dog. Okay? And so what this allows me to do, and then I can do the same thing up here in the new pet. I can say self.type equals pet. Okay? It's a bit of a construed example, but this will help illustrate. So now what I can do is I can change my pet to a dog. And then down here, instead of printing the name, I'm going to print the type of both of these. Okay? When I run this, you'll see Chloe is of type dog and Skittles is of type pet. Right? Because now we're constructing a dog and a pet. What this allows us to do is to overwrite values inside of the base class and replace them with new values. So we can see the value exists in the base class whenever we initialize it. If I remove this, okay, and I run it, you'll see they are both pets because I'm not overwriting self.type. And that's it. That's the basics of constructing classes, instances, and objects, and then using methods to manipulate them. Outside of this, methods can be used with variables being passed in, and we can start to get really complicated hierarchies as we have classes extend each other and create a tree structure of all of our classes if we need to. And you can see that we can manipulate the classes directly when we instantiate them. We can add one-time values onto each of the classes if we need to in memory. That's it for today. We'll go ahead and cover more about object-oriented programming in the next lesson. But thank you all for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.